Good evening. You're watching the ITV Evening News. I'm Lucrezia Millarini. The records fell as quickly as the temperatures rose today, with the UK recording its hottest day ever. It reached a sizzling 40.3 degrees Celsius in Lincolnshire. That's almost 105 Fahrenheit. So it followed the UK's hottest ever night, and the extreme heat covered most of the country, with Scotland recorded its highest ever temperatures. The effects, though, have been damaging and deadly. Tonight, homes in Wennington in East London have been evacuated after a major wildfire erupted, one of several right across England. There have been further deaths in open water as people try to cool off. And of course, there have been the inevitable travel problems on the railways. Well, tonight we have the latest on the impact of those record-breaking temperatures from our reporters right across the country. But first, our correspondent John Ray on those wildfires that are engulfing homes.
On a day that has seared itself into the nation's memory, flames that are a towering monument to the intense heat. Twin blazes straddle the north and south banks of the Thames River to the east of the capital. This is the village of Wennington, where more than 100 firefighters attempted to bring the flames under control. Local residents could only watch and wonder as house after house was destroyed, and others told stories of lucky escape.
And I've only just made it. The flames were coming towards me up Church Lane, so I've ran as fast as I could with the flames behind me. I've got to the end of Church Lane, you have to go left or right. I realised then the fields either side were on fire, so then I had to run faster, parallel to it.
Great is the relief of those saved. More than a dozen people were ordered to evacuate by police.
Banging on the door, out, get out right now. When we come out of the front door, there's black smoke was down the road, completely thick black smoke.
The relentless sun was at least blocked out for a while, but only by the huge rising clouds of smoke. Close by, London baked. The city's stretched emergency services declared a major incident.
Because of the unprecedented heat that we're currently facing, all of the emergency services are currently under significant pressure and answering a number of 999 calls. The London Fire Brigade in particular is dealing with a number of large-scale incidents spread right across the capital and assisting partners in the home counties as well.
Tinder dry land and scorched earth a few miles to the south in Kent, and the same devastating result. A series of fires on Dartford Heath threatened traffic on the A2, where motorists were warned to take alternative, safer routes. In Clacton, on the Essex coast, another emergency call, but this time too late for several homes that were gutted. Even some distance away, the smoke drifted like a toxic mist across the fields. It is not yet clear how so many fires started, nor when all will be extinguished. But the day Britain burnt is a red warning of perils once rare that in future may face us more often. John Ray, ITV News.
Well, as I said, we're going to be speaking to our correspondents right around the country. We're going to speak to Sejal Carrier now, who's at an evacuation centre close to the scene of that wildfire in Wennington in Greater London. Sejal, how are firefighters coping there?
Well, tonight fire crews are still battling the blaze here in Wennington, but the thick black smoke that John spoke of has pretty much dissipated from this particular part of the area. But a lot of residents have been evacuated from their homes. We understand 21 of them have been brought here where I am, just at a hotel just opposite me, and they've been speaking about how the fire spread very quickly, probably carried by the strong winds into the village, the fact that it broke out in adjoining grassland, and that those fields were completely scorched and were at one point burning intensely. A number of homes, we understand, have been destroyed. Others have been severely damaged. We still don't know whether anyone was injured or indeed how these fires began, but there are a lot of distressed families here tonight, and local authorities are now trying to organise a safe place for them.
All right, Sejal Carrier, thank you for the moment. Well, fire crews are also dealing with a large wildfire in Doncaster. Some residents there have been evacuated from their homes. Our North of England reporter Sangeeta Lal has been there, and she sent this a moment ago.
Well, fire services are still working here. This is the last of the dampening of fields that they're trying to do. They spent hours here. It started yesterday and has continued through the day, no doubt being made worse as the temperatures started to rise. But I have spoken to these fire officers. They say they're just doing some final checks to make sure that all of the ground around this area is no longer as dry as it was when it caught fire. But it has been a really hot day here. 40 degrees Celsius has not only led to fires but also impacted power lines. There have been many homes here evacuated, not just because of the fire, but they've been without power too. And if we just have a look over here, we can just see a bit of what's left. So there was a huge emergency service presence, not only fire engines but police too, looking after everyone and making sure they're all safe. The smoke was very thick and heavy earlier today. People were told to keep their windows and doors closed, but for now it looks a lot calmer as the temperatures have reduced.
Sangeeta Lal reporting from Doncaster there. Well, these fires come as temperatures reach unprecedented levels in many parts of the UK. Charwood in Surrey broke the record this morning when it reached 39.1 degrees Celsius. Coningsby in Lincolnshire was the hottest part of the UK. Before 5 p.m. this afternoon, it was 40.3 degrees. Wales's hottest place today is Harden Airport. In Scotland, it was also a record-breaking day, reaching 34.8 degrees in Charterhall. And in Murlock in County Down in Northern Ireland, it got to 26.6 degrees. Well, for those not affected by the fires or the travel disruption, there was the small matter of dealing with the record-breaking heat. Rebecca Barry looks at how people coped on the hottest day.
Dawn on the Yorkshire coast, and the determined were up before the sun to steal a cooling swim before it became unbearable.
It was so hot, I couldn't sleep, so we decided to come watch the sunrise and go and see.
It's very, very cold. A lot colder than we expected.
Gorgeous way to start the morning after a proper hot night.
But for the most vulnerable, this unprecedented heat has brought danger and discomfort. Staff at this hospice in Cheltenham working in stifling PPE to keep their patients protected.
If there's anything you need, you know to ring the bell, don't you?
82-year-old John is grateful for the support.
It's very comfortable in here. Keep the door open, the fans are on all nights, windows are open, and it's very comfortable indeed.
For the younger ones at a nursery in Northampton, it was jelly and ice cream, topped up with plenty of water to keep them safe in conditions they might see more of in their lifetimes.
We're making sure they drink plenty, we've got loose clothing on, sun creams, sun hats. We're looking to make sure that they're not acting out of character, temperatures, so we're doing regular temperature checks and just keeping a really close eye and monitoring it kind of hour by hour really.
At Northamptonshire County Cricket Club, they had to brave the heat, but play was scaled back.
Cricket is a summer game, but they're more used to being rained off than coping with these conditions. Today's fixture has had to be cut short to give players and fans some respite. While some schools closed today, these pupils went ahead with their planned trip to the cricket with ice-cold safety measures. Have you ever felt it this hot before?
Yes.
When? Where?
Spain. I've got a fan so I can keep cool.
And is it doing the job?
It's really hot. Yeah, it's sweaty.
But you're still smiling?
Yeah.
Those fortunate enough to have access to a rooftop pool, like this one in South London, enjoying the highs of this weather. Many others left struggling with the lows. Rebecca Barry, ITV News, Northampton.
Well, to put it into context, the heat that's hit the UK today is so extreme. It's made us one of the hottest countries on the earth, and it's been the spread of that heat that's made this heat wave so exceptional. Chloe Keedy is in Lincolnshire, which, as I said earlier, set that record-breaking temperature of 40.3 degrees. And Chloe, that is very, very hot.
I can tell you, Lucrezia, it is pretty hot. It was at about 4 o'clock this afternoon in Coningsby, which is about a half-hour drive from where I am now, that new record temperature was set. It did, as you say, reach 40.3 degrees Celsius, surpassing the record that was set earlier this afternoon at Heathrow Airport. And look, I've spent the day travelling around this county, and I've got to say here, as in the rest of the country, people are really struggling to cope.
The sound of crackling crops and the stench of smouldering earth is all that's left of these Lincolnshire farming fields. Here, the heat wave has filled the air with thick black smoke and turned tens of thousands of pounds worth of crops to ash.
It'll spread faster than what you can run.
Clive Goulsborough works on a neighbouring farm. He told me he believes this was an accident waiting to happen.
Generally, any machinery that's working in this weather is at risk. We've all got fire extinguishers, but things go so quick. Flints can start it easily on any moving machine.
It's taken 3 hours to get this fire under control, with farmers and firefighters working together to try and get ahead of the flames. But their job has been made much, much harder by the fact that the ground is so dry.
We're asking people to be careful with pretty much everything when they're outside. Disposable barbecues, we're asking people not to unless there's a designated hard standing area, smoking materials, etc. Even rubbish, glass bottles, with the sun as it is, the refraction of the light can then start fires when everything's so dry.
And it's not just fire that represents risk during a heat wave. It's been another busy day for lifeguards and coastguards. 5 people were rescued, but 1 is still missing after getting into difficulty off the coast of Clacton. And the body of a teenager was pulled from the river in Richmond after being seen entering the water here yesterday afternoon. The RNLI urged people to stick to swimming where there are lifeguards.
Although the weather is so warm, the water is still cold in the UK. It very rarely gets above 16 degrees. And be aware of tidal cut-offs. We do have very fast incoming tides along our coast that a lot of people do get caught out by.
In Durham, this road gritter is usually put to work in winter, but today it was spreading sand on melting tarmac in an attempt to keep motorists on the move. And in Derbyshire, you only had to look at the departure boards to see how the rail network was coping. Across the country, services were cancelled or suspended, and passengers told to stay at home. But that wasn't the message for all school children today. This school in Oldham opted to stay open. Its students rewarded with ice lollies and Arctic rolls.
They wanted us to wear our own clothes, and they wanted us to put sun cream on and hats.
And that's a message that we are all being asked to remember. This beautiful dawn in Saltburn today told us little of the dangers that today's weather would bring. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
Well, there's been a second day of severe travel disruptions because of the extreme temperatures. Our consumer editor, Chris Choi, joins me now. Chris, many commuters stayed home over the past few days. But what's the situation right now?
Well, clearly the rail network has never seen anything like this. More importantly, it was never designed for anything like this. And a very large part of the infrastructure today simply could not cope. Let's have a look at some of the detail here. The East Coast Main Line is closed from King's Cross all the way up to York and Leeds, with no services running at all. There are no trains in or out of Birmingham New Street after heat affected 25,000-volt overhead cables there, and all services to and from Euston Station have been suspended after, again, overhead cables caused problems, and also a trackside fire. All trains between Euston and Milton Keynes are cancelled tonight. That's an important commuter route. The entire service from Avanti West Coast between Scotland and London has been halted for the rest of the day after what the firm is describing as multiple incidents. Very many other services are affected, even when they've run with far less frequency or far slower. The general advice has been to stay at home, travel only if absolutely necessary, and keep an eye on those emergency timetables, though those are changing, often with little or no notice at all. Yeah, and Chris, with all the problems that we've had over the last few days, there's no certainty that things are going to get back to normal tomorrow. Absolutely not. We'd heard predictions that the tracks themselves would be affected, but of course what we're seeing is the overhead cables too being damaged. There's been an awful lot of destruction of railway infrastructure, really significant damage. The industry says it's going to be challenging now to get everything back up and running by tomorrow. So a degree of this disruption, it seems, will continue, not least because the tracks themselves were only ever designed to be resilient up to about 35 degrees, not the 40 degrees or so that we're seeing today. And in fact, the highest track temperatures have been 62 degrees. Just gives you an idea of how intense this is. Yeah, it really is, isn't it, Chris? For now, thank you. Of course, some more details on this record-breaking temperatures that we're seeing and, of course, the travel disruption on our website, itv.com/news. Well, now, nowhere can you get a better picture of the rise and spread of the heat than at the headquarters of the Met Office in Exeter in Devon. Our correspondent Rupert Evelyn is there for us tonight. Rupert, a grandstand view of today's historic temperatures.
Yeah, it's, as you might expect, has been a very busy day here at the Met Office, focused not just on the numbers for today, but looking at how they compare with the past and trying to analyse already what it means for the future. And it's a fairly bleak assessment in terms of climate change and our burning of fossil fuels. If we continue as a world, as a global population to burn fossil fuels, then the sense from the scientists here at the Met Office is we can expect these rare events to become more common.
Well, we did some work, some of my colleagues here at the Met Office, looking at 40 degrees and how possible that was in the UK. And we found that it was virtually impossible to see temperatures of 40 degrees in a pre-industrial undisturbed climate in the UK. So now, with the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the possibility exists, and we've seen that possibility unfold during the course of this day. So it's a real wake-up that just the degree to which the climate has now changed. We're into territory that we would not have seen in a pre-industrial world.
And just to give you a sense of context, other than today, the previous 10 highest temperatures for the UK, 9 of them have happened since 1990. One of them was way back in 1910. The evidence is crystal clear, and as they said here today, and many scientists around the country will say, this is a wake-up call. All right, Rupert, thank you. Well, there is plenty more to come on the ITV Evening News, including the latest in the Tory leadership race as the field narrows to the final 3.
At 7, I'll be reporting from the Amazon to find out why the World Wildlife Fund wants the government to ban the sale of illegal gold in the hope of protecting the rainforest and its people. Well, they say what happens in the so-called lungs of the world has huge implications for the global climate, and that couldn't be more relevant now. So that and much more after the break. Welcome back. Millions of public sector workers are to receive below-inflation pay rises, increasing the risk of more industrial action. The government's pay awards to teachers, doctors, nurses and police officers comes as unions demand wages match the spiralling cost of living. Here's our political reporter, Shihab Khan.
It is public sector workers like these who work tirelessly throughout the pandemic. Nurses, teachers, police officers. But as the cost of living has been rising, their pay hasn't, and now many are struggling.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Taking his seat at the cabinet table for the final time, the Prime Minister promised more support would come.
We will continue to give help for households throughout this difficult time, throughout the summer, the autumn, and we will continue to make sure that we're looking at ways of abating the problems for those who need it.
But for Rachel Ambrose, a nurse in Buckinghamshire, she needs it now, and says especially after the pandemic, any below-inflation pay rise would be an insult.
It's not good enough. It doesn't touch the sides. It's not just for the past couple of years that we haven't had a pay rise. I've been a nurse for 20 years and actually we've had real terms pay cuts for over a decade now. They were stood there, they were clapping, but they weren't talking about how they support health and social care.
The government has today accepted pay review bodies' suggestions and will offer pay rises to a quarter of public sector workers, with different industries getting different amounts. An average nurse will get an extra £66 a month after tax, the average teacher an extra £81 a month, and the average police officer an additional £80. But with inflation this year projected to surpass 10%, all of these represent a real terms pay cut.
I don't think many people go into education with the view that they're going to be paid ridiculous amounts of money. But at the same time, we would expect a better reward for the amount of work we put in, especially when the economy is looking.
It's not just public sector workers raising concerns. There have already been a number of strikes in recent months over pay. We saw travel disruption across the country, as well as barristers walking out. Now postal workers are edging closer to doing the same after they voted in favour of strikes unless Royal Mail bosses reconsider their pay offer.
But I think it's inevitable that workers across the UK will come together and say enough's enough. I think it's happening in businesses up and down the country. And I think you're going to see workers demanding a new deal, not just on pay, but on the way that they're treated.
With inflation soaring, the offers being handed out may not be enough to calm a summer of discontent. Shihab Khan, ITV News. A bigger interest rate rise will be on the table at the next meeting of the Bank of England's decision makers. That's what the bank's governor will say at his annual Mansion House speech later. Andrew Bailey is expected to say that a rise from 1.25% to 1.75% would be one of the options to try to tackle inflation. And two groups within the Labour Party have been accused of using anti-Semitism as a factional weapon. A long-awaited report blamed factional opposition towards former leader Jeremy Corbyn for hampering efforts to stamp it out from the party. But the report into a leaked anti-Semitism dossier found no evidence of the issue being handled differently from other complaints. The battle to be the next Tory leader and Prime Minister is now between three candidates. Kemi Badenoch was eliminated this afternoon after failing to get enough votes. And that leaves Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss all still in the running tonight. Well, our political editor, Robert Peston, is in Westminster. And Robert, just three left standing and there's all still to play for.
Well, not quite. I mean, Rishi Sunak, with 118 votes, does only need 2 additional votes to be absolutely confident in being one of those last two in the runoff where members of the Tory party decide who the next Prime Minister is. I mean, I have to say he did only pick up 3 today, so I suppose it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he'll only get 2. That said, there are some Tory MPs who think that those organising his campaign, this is Rishi Sunak's campaign, have been involved in a bit of funny business, maybe lending some of his support, perhaps to Liz Truss, who they think he would rather face in that runoff. I have to say those others close to Rishi Sunak say no, he's very happy to actually face either Liz Truss or Penny Mordaunt. The big fight is between those two, Mordaunt in second place and Truss in second. Only a handful of votes separate them. There are 59 votes up for grabs in the heat tomorrow. Those are the number of votes that went to Kemi Badenoch. Now, Kemi Badenoch herself, inconceivable that she personally will back Penny Mordaunt. I mean, I've very rarely seen a candidate in a contest show animosity, I don't think is too fine a point on it. She was not showing herself, particularly in ITV's debate, a great fan of Penny Mordaunt. So Kemi Badenoch won't be voting for Penny Mordaunt, and I have to say some of her supporters won't be. So right now, and it's really striking, betting markets not only think that Liz Truss will be one of the last two against Rishi Sunak, but because opinion polls show that Rishi Sunak would lose to Liz Truss, she is now the outright favourite to be our next Prime Minister. Word of caution, in my experience of these things, it's never done till it's done. There is going to be a lot of excitement in the next, almost 24 hours. We won't know the result until it's announced first tomorrow and then on September the 5th when we get the final result after the members' poll.
All right, Robert, we'll see what happens in the next 24 hours. Thank you. And you can get more analysis on the race for number 10 in our podcast, What You Need to Know. Robert and Daniel Hewitt discuss whether the Tory rivals' brutal attacks on each other may have done serious damage to the party's long-term hopes of clinging on to power. You can listen on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching the ITV Evening News. Here's what's still ahead before Emmerdale. The extreme heat is causing wildfires across France, Spain, Portugal and Greece. We're in France with the latest. And stay with us for the developing story here as wildfires burn across England.
After a day of record-breaking temperatures, I'll be back a little later in the programme to tell you what is coming next.
And it's not just people feeling the heat, but animals too. How do zookeepers help them stay cool? And
I'm live on the red carpet at the premiere of Netflix's most expensive movie ever. And when there's a big budget, there's big stars. I'll be chatting with some of them.
First, as the UK swelters under its hottest day ever, we have a special report from the Amazon on the environmental destruction that's fueling climate change across the world. ITV News has seen how the rainforest is being cleared to make way for illegal gold mines. It is destroying the homes and livelihoods of indigenous people and releasing toxic chemicals into the rivers, and its effects spread far wider. Today, the head of the World Meteorological Organization warned that deforestation in the Amazon is boosting global warming. From the Amazon, our correspondent Emma Murphy sends this special report.
It's a ritual as old as the land itself, a blessing for the Amazon and those for whom it's home. A chanting to the gods for the rainforests and the waters which sustain it. Yet the protection they seek for now, and for the generations ahead, is from a man-made threat which threatens us all. The Amazon is disappearing. Much of it is being cut down in the quest for gold. The green of the trees giving way to the scorched orange of illegal mines. A natural treasure being destroyed for financial treasure. As global temperatures rise, the tracks to the gold seams take the world on a journey from which there is no certain return.
The scale of the illegal gold mining now in the Amazon is completely out of control. What usually was very localized in some small places, now it's everywhere. So it's super serious what's happening. Yeah.
The rainforest is crucial to curbing global warming, yet each day an area equivalent to 2,000 football pitches is destroyed. The rising price of gold drives expansion and pollution. The milky white of the rivers is the result of the mercury used in the mines. The gold flows to the world market, the poison to the waterways that sustain human and animal life.
They are incredibly beautiful, but these waters are also very polluted. The illegal gold that is mined around here often gets into the British market through jewellery or bullion. As a result, the World Wildlife Fund is calling for the British government to ban the sale of illegal gold in the hope of protecting the rainforest and its people.
Laudeco's family has fished here for generations. As the mines spread, the fish began to die. Then many in the local community began to show signs of mercury poisoning, a decline in cognitive function and other serious health issues.
do peixe. O peixe, para mim, é uma das maiores preocupações. Mas você vê hoje, é o dia a dia das pessoas que moram na margem do rio, que depende direto do rio. Nós, população da Amazônia, nós indígenas, nós não conseguimos viver sem os rios. E a gente sabe, né, que o rio é o maior termômetro se aquele ambiente está bem ou não.
Now, Deco's family believe the mercury has already robbed them of one life. His daughter miscarried and they discovered her husband had high levels of contamination in his body. She stopped eating fish when she became pregnant again.
Eu que sou mãe, né, eu já tive que começar a pensar sobre isso, além de ter esse cuidado com a minha alimentação e pensar também para o futuro da minha filha. Será que ela ainda vai comer o peixe que o avô dela está pescando, né, que alimentou a gente por muito tempo, né? E agora a gente tem que escolher o peixe que a gente pode comer, né? Que está menos contaminado.
A World Wildlife Fund study showed mercury contamination in every one of the 462 people they tested. With Brazilian gold exports rising, the government is accused of failing to protect the land and those who live on it.
All of this gold is being produced illegally inside protected areas, inside indigenous lands. So it's completely illegal. It's a crime, and the Brazilian government should be enforcing the law and doing law enforcement operations, and it's just not happening.
Some have tried and are now in hiding, their life under threat.
So you have the rifle and then... Pistol?
Alexander Saraiva was a police chief in the Amazon until he was sacked for trying to stop illegal mining.
O governo federal tem discurso de incentivo à atividade, principalmente garimpeira. O que para mim é uma grande contradição em termos lógicos, porque nenhum governo gosta de uma atividade que não paga impostos. E o garimpo ilegal não paga impostos. A única possibilidade de um governo apoiar uma atividade ilegal é se ele estiver recebendo alguma quantia de forma pessoal.
Only the few will wear the gold that is destroying the rainforest. The many will live with its consequences. Emma Murphy, ITV News, in the Amazon.
Let's go to Emma now, who joins us live from Brazil. And Emma, the World Wildlife Fund clearly extremely concerned about the expansion of illegal mining.
Yes, they are, and it's easy to see why. 3 years ago, when I flew over this similar area of the Amazon, it was very obvious that the deforestation was taking hold. But what was really striking when we flew this week was that everywhere we went, there were these big orange patches. They were either mines that had been fully mined and had been disused, or they were new ones that were being built, and for every single one a huge area of trees are lost. The reason WWF is calling on the British government to take action is because the UK market is the third largest for imports of Brazilian gold, 50% of which is from these illegal mines. So that's why the UK is getting this special appeal to take action. And although the Amazon may feel a very long way away and extremely remote, it's important to remember that any damage that's done in the Amazon has a direct impact on climate around the world.
Emma in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, thank you. Well, let's get an update on what is making the headlines. And homes are on fire in East London as wildfires spread into a residential area. People are being evacuated to safety. In London and Leicestershire, major incidents have been declared as crews battle several wildfires. And a reminder of today's top temperature, 40.3 degrees has been recorded in Lincolnshire. It has never been hotter in the UK. Well, deadly wildfires continue to force people from their homes across continental Europe. The extreme heat moved north, sparking more fires in tinder-dry areas. Tourists have also been evacuated. Our correspondent Ben Chapman has the latest.
On the front line in this country's fight with wildfires, the work is dangerous and relentless. In southwest France, the flames have now burned through an area twice the size of Paris. This is the destruction they've left behind. In this part of France, popular with tourists, these are the charred remains of campsites, which had, thankfully, already been evacuated. At the firefighters' command post, I'm told protecting people's homes is still at the mercy of the weather.
The big challenge today is protect the habitation. The wind, it changed and turn and change. It's a difficulty.
As the flames and smoke moved, they threatened a nearby zoo, 400 animals becoming the latest evacuees here. The enemy today is not the heat, but the wind. They've spent the night felling trees to create fire breaks. They're worried about it changing direction, the flames leaping the road and affecting houses on the other side. As the most searing heat moved northwards today, Brittany became the latest region of France to wake up to the glow of burning forest. In northern Spain, people in the village of Moros were forced to grab what they could and flee, as the authorities admitted they couldn't stop the flames from rushing up the hillside towards them. Back in Gironde, people at this evacuation centre know how it feels. Beatrice, who has MS, and her daughter Sonia slept here last night, having left their cats and most of their possessions behind.
When I arrived here, I felt completely helpless. I feel huge sadness, and I have the feeling that I've left my entire past behind me. And I'm going to miss that, because I haven't got anything.
Outside the centre, people watch as the battle to contain these fires continues. More than 30,000 people still unable to go home are relying on firefighters who, for a week now, have struggled to bring things under control. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Southwest France.
To some of the day's other stories now, and in athletics, Britain's Laura Muir has revealed she nearly missed the World Championships after clinching bronze last night. The Scot claimed her first outdoor world medal in the 1500 metres with her best time of the season. An injury left her on crutches in February and she couldn't run for 2 months. And England boss Sarina Wiegman says she is very hopeful as she waits to see if she can attend Wednesday's quarter-final Euros match against Spain after testing positive for COVID last week. She was absent from the Friday's 5-0 group stage victory over Northern Ireland after the positive test.
Of course, I'm very hopeful, but we'll see what happens. And we do know if I can't be there, I'll be around in another way.
Next tonight, a bit of showbiz and the new Netflix movie The Grey Man has its premiere in London tonight, starring Ryan Gosling and British star Regé-Jean Page. It cost $200 million and took a decade to make. Well, our entertainment reporter Rishi Davda is on the red carpet in London tonight. Rishi, plenty of stars in the sunshine.
Oh, they were greeted by beautiful sunshine as they walked down the red carpet. Thankfully, I managed to find a little bit of shade. Now, the Grey Man film has been floating around Netflix offices for about a decade now, and it's had different directors and actors attached to it. But when it was greenlit back in 2020, well, they got some really big names involved, and with those big names came big money. $200 million, about £160 million, to adapt the Grey Man book into a spy action-filled thriller. Well, the lead actor, Ryan Gosling, who plays Sierra 6, told me that despite it being Netflix's most expensive film ever, he felt pretty confident going into shooting.
If it wasn't the Russo brothers, it would be different, you know, but they've been doing this for a decade at Marvel, and so I just knew I was in good hands and, you know, just felt like I could just go for the ride on this one.
Now, you may remember that Netflix actually started back in 1997, sending DVDs, rental DVDs, to people in the post. Do you remember DVDs? That seems like quite a while ago now. Well, Netflix has 220 million paid subscribers to its online streaming service, and that was met with a little bit of change recently when we found out that they'd actually lost subscribers for the first time ever, around the same time that there was a price increase and also a crackdown on people sharing their passwords. But Netflix has created huge hits and huge stars, including Bridgerton's Regé-Jean Page, who plays Carmichael in The Grey Man. And he said it's amazing to be able to reach so many audiences in so many ways.
I mean, I think it's really cool that we can meet audiences where there are. I think it's super cool. The wider an audience you can reach with storytelling, that's all that anyone wants to achieve as a storyteller. So to my simple actor's brain, it's a little bit like playing on a big sports team. Like if you walk out for Man United, you want a full stadium, you know? And so the more people who are watching the game, the more people who are watching the story, who are being moved by what you're doing, who are being excited or scared or thrilled or amused, that's a win.
Perfect. Have a wonderful evening. Well, I was lucky enough to see the film just yesterday, and it's jam-packed, 2 hours worth of action sequences. It's clear to see where that $200 million went.
Rishi with the stars, thank you. Very warm pursuits on that red carpet. Much more after the break. Lemurs with lollies. Zookeepers do what they can to help the animals stay cool.
And after last night's temperatures, I'll be back in a few minutes to tell you whether you'll be sleeping any better tonight.
All that plus the latest on the wildfires after the break. Hello again, welcome back. Now, if you've struggled with the heat over the past 2 days, spare a thought for the zookeepers who have to keep all kinds of different animals hydrated. And with temperatures higher than anything you'd normally see on the African savannah, they all needed cooling down, as Ellie Pitt reports from West Midlands Safari Park.
It turns out lemurs like ice lollies to keep cool too. So much so, some were not up for sharing. And as the temperatures soared today, frozen treats were on hand for all creatures, great and small. It's Matt's job to keep Asian rhinos happy in the heat.
We've got plenty of shaded areas for the animals, as I say, our wallows. So they've been okay. Obviously, we've got plenty of very dedicated keepers, and everyone's done a great job to make sure that all our animals are okay through this extreme heat.
Despite the stifling sunshine, these safari park visitors who braved the warmth of their cars were rewarded with a show from curious giraffes.
While most of us are sweltering in this heat, there might be some you'd expect to be in their element. But even these giraffes who've adapted to the hot climate of their native sub-Saharan Africa are staying in the shade.
These animals have evolved to cope in high temperatures, but there are some who've been bred in captivity here, so this is also their first taste of unusually hot British weather. And they weren't the only ones trying to avoid the heat. Tourists had their sights set on one ride.
It was really good, I loved it.
And did it keep you cool?
Yeah.
That's the first ride we asked. We was like, is the log flume open? And they said, yeah.
It was really good. Yeah, I just got soaked.
It's the second time we went on so we could keep cool.
Most of us are holding out for this heat wave to pass, but in Lima land there might be a few who'll miss this kind of treatment. Ellie Pitt, ITV News, West Midlands Safari Park.
Well, let's get that all-important weather forecast now. And Becky is in Suffolk, which yesterday recorded the UK's hottest day of the year. It was one of the hottest days again today. And Becky, this is not just a normal summer, is it?
Well, yes and no. I mean, lots of people have been writing in about this. Yes, of course, it's normal for temperatures to rise in the summer, but we've got a new temperature record just 3 short years after the last temperature record was set. That's not normal. I'll tell you what else is not normal, and that is that we now have nearly double the number of days a year where the temperature exceeds 30 degrees. That's nearly double in just 30 years. Let's have a look at this chart as well. It's not just the UK. You don't need to be a climatologist to see the huge difference in this global heat comparison chart in less than 50 years. Yesterday here at Cavendish in Suffolk, as you say, it was one of the hottest places in the UK. 38 degrees yesterday, 38 degrees today. But not too far away in Coningsby in Lincolnshire today, a new record was set, 40.3 degrees. That's 105 Fahrenheit. That's hotter than anywhere in Europe, hotter than 99% of the planet. No, this is not normal, but it may become the new normal.
Wondering, have we seen the peak of the heat then?
Well, this is the good news for those who are really struggling in the heat, and feathered and furred and human as well. Yes, we have seen the peak of the heat now. Already we've got cooler and fresher air tumbling in from the west, so a much more comfortable night for sleeping tonight. But as inevitably happens in these situations, we've also got thunderstorms to contend with. Let's have a look at the forecast.
There'll be some light cloud early on today, but by lunchtime it will almost certainly clear. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
So the heat now has, as I say, really peaked, and it has been, as you can see, a UK-wide event. 40 degrees, as I say, in Lincolnshire and at Heathrow, and Scotland have recorded a new high as well. But as I say, over the next few days, if we have a look, you can see that mercifully we've got cooler air spreading in now and into tomorrow, but we've got thunderstorms to contend with as well, particularly in the south. So we have a look ahead to this evening and overnight. We do still have a thunderstorm warning across those northeastern parts of the UK, and that's in force for about another half an hour or so. Not much in the way of rain falling, but we are expecting a fair few rumbles of thunder, and here it's gusty as well. But as I say, a much more comfortable night is expected for sleeping, thank goodness. And then we look ahead to tomorrow. Well, thunderstorms are expected across those more southern parts of the UK through tomorrow. And watch out, that cloud base is so much lower that this time we are going to have the rain falling out of them. Some torrential downpours are expected, and we're expecting some mixture of hail in there as well. That rain could cause some localised impact. It's not going to be very helpful for the garden on such dry, packed soil, but definitely we are expecting some rain. Hit and miss nature of thunderstorms, of course. Many parts getting away with a dry day. Sunny spells and showers, still warm towards the east, cooler from the west. And then as we look ahead then to the next few days, feast your eyes on this if you've been struggling in the heat. It really does start to return to business as usual. By the time we get to Saturday, it is going to be an extremely pleasant 24 degrees.
Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
So watch out for the impacts of those pretty lively thunderstorms, particularly in the south through tomorrow, but definitely things calming down, and I'm very relieved. I'm pretty tired. Back to you.
I bet. Hopefully you can get into some aircon soon. Becky, thank you. And before we go, an update on that wildfire in East London, which has set buildings alight. Sejal Carrier is in Wennington for us this evening. Sejal, what's the latest?
Well, hundreds of firefighters have been tackling a number of significant blazes in and around London. One of them here in Wennington on the outskirts of East London. Fire crews here are still tackling the flames, which some residents say have encircled their village. I can still smell the smoke that had engulfed this area, but which has now largely cleared away. At least 21 of the people that were evacuated from their homes have been brought here to a hotel just opposite me. A number of their homes have been destroyed, others have been severely damaged. It's still not clear if anyone has been injured or indeed what caused the fire. The fire broke out in nearby grassland, and the ground beneath me that I can feel is tinder dry, and that combined with the wind is likely the reason that the fire spread so quickly. Tonight, local authorities are still trying to organise a safe place for those people that have been evacuated to spend the night, while firefighters tried to bring into control the flames in their village, and while a major incident remains in place across London.
All right, Sejal, thank you very much. And of course, you can get updates on our website, itv.com/news. That's it from us, though. Chris is here with news at 10. But from all of us here on the evening news team, goodbye and stay cool if you can.